Are you one of those people who still receive your payments by check or by which you have to go and deposit in a bank, or and you have to withdraw cash from your ATM for your expenses? I think now there is a very solid reason to mechanize everything, right? So maybe in the 1990s and maybe even early 2000s, there was a system where people would send checks and you would deposit it in the bank, then you would withdraw money from the ATM and spend. Today everything can be automated, right? So whether I do some work for a client, and the client, whether it's client payment, all I need to do is send my PAN card, my Aadhaar card and my copy of my check, and the amount gets credited directly. If there is TDS, it comes out in my 26AS statement. If there is GST, well, I have myself raised the bill, so I know I have to make the payment before the 7th or 8th of the next month, right? So this is how it can be. Your investments can be completely automated, which means your SIPs are an auto debit. You can be dealing online with your broker, and it need not be the same broker with whom you have a demat account. You have to have one demat account with him, but I would prefer that your big demat account, let's say you have a 5 crore portfolio, keep your 5 crore portfolio in a bank demat and the other portfolio in your with your broker. Even if you have a 5 lakh rupee position, it doesn't matter. Whatever shares you bought, let's say you bought HDFC, and let's say you bought Gillette, and you bought Cholamandalam or HDFC Bank, and you think you're going to hold it for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Keep that in a bank demat, and otherwise have an account with with a broker. Yes, have a demat account with him, but don't leave too much of a balance. I just don't trust brokers enough. And this year, 2020, has been dismal. At least 20 brokers' licenses have been cancelled, or at least they've been prosecuted, including slightly more reputed ones like Karvi, right? Anugrah was another one who, only when these figures come out at 1,000 crores, you realize what has happened. So please keep your demat account with the bank. I know banks charge ridiculously high amounts, but we have really no choice. That is a price worth paying. If you have a 2 crore portfolio or a 3 crore portfolio or even a 20 lakh portfolio, you don't want to lose it to some fraudulent broker who used your shares, whether you gave a power of attorney, did not give a power of attorney. Don't get into all that. But if there is somebody who can misuse, good chance that in a bad day, when he is in tough times, he will misuse, and he will then tell you, I just thought it was temporary, I took some shares from you and I thought I will put it back and it didn't happen, etc., etc. Such a thing can never happen in a bank demat, right? Sorry, I may have digressed a little, but yes, automate everything. There are people who still transfer money. If their salary comes into one account, and then that account they don't have any net access, so they transfer money to another account. That's fine if you want to play it that safe, but make sure that all the payments you make are by credit card or debit card. I would suggest credit card for all expenses which are small. 140 rupees at a restaurant, or 380 rupees with a grocer buying 2 items, right? Anything, just keep charging everything to your credit card rather than a debit card, because your bank statement should not become too long with such small debits, right? So even if you're paying your grocer, if you're going to pay your grocer 340, 480, 612, various purchases, I think it's better transferring a lump sum to him and keeping track or something like that. But yes, please automate. Now I'm going to say something which is contradicting, because when you are teaching money to your children, one very important thing to teach is to say, only when I give something will you get something. So asking your daughter or son to make the payment, if they're old enough, say 8-9 years of age, they can even count. So even if you're buying something worth 500 rupees or 1000 rupees, ask them to count the number of notes, what they're giving, what they're getting back. Ask them to process it, right? So I mean, the advantages, these are personal expenses anyway, so it doesn't really matter. You don't need to keep track except when you're making your own budget. But whatever cash you've withdrawn, you're going to use it only here. So just track your cash expenses. You know, whatever cash you've withdrawn, you have spent, because there's no cash lying at home. You've not kept any great 5 lakhs cash lying at home, maybe 10-15,000 is lying at home in case of an emergency, and all the remaining money is spent on personal expenses. That you do accounting separately, but let your children touch and feel money and think that something is going to get something back, right? These are basics which only you have to teach. The children are not going to learn it by themselves. So you have to, by automating your broking account, by your mutual funds, your expenses, etc., year-end accounting becomes very simple. Then draw summaries saying how much you've spent on what, etc. So for all that, record keeping is very, very useful. You're wasting your time and money by not doing all this in a mechanized way. For example, you get a good quality, decent quality credit card, and make sure that all the payments go through that credit card. So your telephone bill, your electricity bill, your gas bill, everything goes through that card. So that card becomes free for life. You collect some points. I'm not saying you're going to make too much money using those points, but end of the year you can summarize and you know if you've spent on, how much you've spent on electricity, how much you've spent on gas. Everything is available at one shot. If you were to make all these payments from your bank account, perfectly possible, but the number of entries in your bank account will go up dramatically. Now suppose there are 12 or 13 entries in your credit card statement. All those 13 entries would be there in your bank statement, which means your bank statement will have that, say, 15 transactions a month into 1,280 extra transactions, which is ridiculous and worthless, right? Because if you have spent on personal expenses, again I would suggest 2 cards. Personal expenses one card, business expenses on the other card. Even if you're in employment, that should be in another card, and that payment should be settled directly by the client, by your boss, by your company. That is because you don't want it to happen that you are earning maybe 50 lakhs a year, but you've spent 75 lakhs on your credit card, because all your foreign travel, everything you charge on your credit card. So you will get a query from the income tax saying, oh, you've earned only 50 lakhs, how have you spent 75 lakhs? It is not difficult to explain, but a lot of documentation and painful documentation will happen. Much better that you incur all your expenses on the company provided credit card, and on the due date ask the company to pay. Make sure that you keep it very strict, that you will not charge any expense which you are not eligible for in the company credit card. Your personal credit card is where you will do all that. I don't think it makes sense. I don't think corporates will allow you to say, oh, whatever is my personal expenses, I will pay from my pocket. No, it doesn't work that way. So keep the cards separate and do it. Simplify. It will definitely simplify your life. When you have your goals, when you do your investments online and you have everything available in a blog or a website, or in a personal financial document, which could be a Google document or whatever you have created, extracting all the data, keeping it there, writing down why did you spend that 9922, whether it is a business expense to be reimbursed, to be claimed, or right. Don't have to worry about all that. You know, if it is in this credit card, let's say you have a HDFC Bank Diners credit card, you will incur your expenses and your company expenses in that, and you have another ICICI Bank credit card on which you will incur all your personal expenses, right? So keeping them separate is useful. Charging everything to one business card is very useful, because it will mean end of the month or end of the quarter, whenever you claim the balance, you will know why you have incurred those expenses. You will remember that this is anyway some claimable expense. Whether you can actually claim it or no is a different thing, but these are business expenses. Tomorrow you may want to claim that in your income tax return, right? So at least keep the cards separate, makes sense. Keep the investments well managed, all mechanically. End of the year, putting everything together, collating your capital gain statement, your mutual fund investment statement, all those things which have to be attached to the income tax return, life becomes much simpler. So mechanize first, then after you've done well with the mechanization, you can think of buying a software which will do right from goal setting to making your will. But don't be in a hurry to buy that first. See how disciplined you are in doing everything online, and end of the month trying to make your P&L or your balance sheet also, right? Check out all that. Once you can do it, you can then decide which software to buy. No hurry. Thank you.